please put down your placard. Chief Executive. The Chief Executive will first address the Council. Chief Executive. Mr. President, members, last week we fought the first battle against the swine flu. Yesterday we had the second confirmed case imported to Hong Kong. The government is going all out to fight this battle. I'm grateful to all members' support for the government's endeavour to prevent and combat the disease. However divergent our views are, however many wrangling executive in the legislature, confronted with a crisis, we should cast aside our differences, stand united, and train our weapons outward. This is a manifestation of political maturity as much as a manifestation of Hong Kong's spirit. What touches me is that in this battle against the epidemic, everybody from medical personnel, civil servants, cleaning workers, to hotel staff, is all dedicated to their work fearlessly to get the job done. Such spirit was amply demonstrated 6 years ago during the SARS period. 6 years on, we haven't let our guard down, we haven't slackened our efforts. We've become more mature, more professional, and more united. Hong Kong is a place where we feel ambivalent about. We were born and brought up here. We've developed a passion for Hong Kong's way of life. But we wish that Hong Kong could have much better achievements. We're always hoping that Hong Kong can get ahead and excel internationally and make it proud to be a Hong Kong citizen. With this mindset, the people of Hong Kong pin very high hope on the government. If the government falls down, it comes in for severe criticism. As an ordinary person, I won't feel good about severe criticism, but I remain of the view that the people of Hong Kong are quality people. This is a robust society, and such robustness will see us through hurdles after hurdles. The fight against the epidemic has just begun. We have to stay vigilant and responsive. However, we have to brace ourselves for economic recession. Hong Kong's economic performance so far this year has consistently worsened. In the first quarter, export values have dropped steeply by 22%. Retail sales also experienced a contraction of 5.5%, much worse than the fourth quarter last year. I believe that the GDP figures for the first quarter to be announced by the Census and Statistics Department tomorrow will demonstrate that the Hong Kong, there will be a noticeable slide in our economy. The second quarter will not be optimistic. The global economy has not stabilized. The human swine flu has introduced more uncertainties. The annual economic forecast will be adjusted downwards. In combating the epidemic, we understand that the government and the people are in the same boat. Only if we are pulling in the same direction can we be triumphant. The same can be said about the economic recession. The Financial Secretary, in his reply to the appropriation bill debate, said that he will make suitable arrangements having regard to the latest economic situations. If the situation takes a sharp turn for the worse, we will have no hesitation in rolling out appropriate relief measures. We're working in earnest, in consultation with political parties and organizations, to deliberate and firm up the measures. I can give my undertaking to the members of the public that the new batch of relief measures will be launched within a month. As regards short to medium-term measures, I will work on the basis of the principle of stabilizing the financial system, backing enterprises, and sustaining jobs. In relation to SMEs, the government's loan guarantee scheme has disbursed $17.6 billion, benefiting 6,500 SMEs, which between them have a payroll of 120,000. On average, this scheme is disbursing about $200 billion each working day, so it has achieved tangible effects. In terms of employment, we're proceeding as planned to seek funding from the Finance Committee this legislative year in excess of $100 billion for various projects, big and small. At the moment, we have got approval by the PwC about 100 projects, totaling $52 billion. We will be endeavoring to seek further funding in the coming 2 months for the remaining projects. We'll get on with the approved projects. We hope that this will create more jobs and inject new impetus into the economy. We expect that as the key infrastructural projects are coming on stream, the economy and employment situation will gradually improve. In terms of the medium and long-term strategies for economic development, the Task Force on Economic Challenges, headed by me, has put forward 6 economic areas with clear advantages. We are engaging in debates and studies in a focused manner. The experts and professionals taking part in the focus groups have put forward valuable comments. This is not talking in vacuum. Upon collating the views, we will be mapping out a development blueprint which is workable and most suitable for Hong Kong. Over the past 6 months or so, we've emerged from all kinds of difficulties. Lying ahead are no less problems. My confidence, however, in the people of Hong Kong remains as ever. I believe that we can get the job done and done well. Thank you. The Chief Executive will now answer questions put by members. Members who wish to ask questions will please press the Request to Speak button to indicate their wish and wait for their turn. Members will please stand up when asking questions. In order to fit in as many members as possible, will members please avoid making long statements. After the Chief Executive has answered all the questions put by members, the member may forthwith ask a short supplementary question on his or her question. The member concerned only needs to raise his or her hand to indicate, and there is no need to press the Request to Speak button again. Mr. Lee. Mr. President, Mr. Chief Executive, there are many government departments that are cited in Golden Belts, the T&D Department, FEHD, and the Water Supplies Department in Sayi Street. I mean, they are hogging these golden belts in urban areas, and we hope that they can be vacated to make way for better users. Earlier, the government suggested that in Wan Chai, the 3 government blocks might be considered to be relocated. In the Kai-Tak development plan, land has been set aside for government buildings. Will the Chief Executive let us know whether the government secretariat will be relocated out of the CBD and assess the possibility of certain departments being moved out of the CBD?
The most important consideration is how to serve the public and whether these sites for serving the public are suitably located or not. In the choice of government offices, we have this basic consideration. Well, you refer to places that are really busy spots in town. Well, in the 80s, the Trade and Industry Department was moved from Tsim Sha Tsui to Mong Kok, but then many people objected. They said that it was too far away. And the staff was not happy. It was a remote area. It was far away from town center. Now it is a busy spot. The prime consideration is convenience for the public we serve. But I also agree with you that it's not necessary to place all government offices in town center. If necessary and where possible, we can move them to other places as far as possible. Town planning is spreading to the new territories. We can consider setting up SAR offices in new towns. We will continue to consider this from the perspective of service to the public, the need, and also the land value and transportation. Indeed, we have the intention to move our Wan Chai government towers to other newly developed areas so as to vacate the sites for other development purpose. And we can also consider other government departments. But of course, the most important thing is the public they serve. For instance, the Trade and Industry Department has to issue export permits, and the department has to be conveniently located. It is now on top of an MTR station. It's easily accessible and a popular spot. We also have to consider the needs of other members of the public and other land users and strike a balance. Mr. Lee, Mr. Xi, can you undertake that you would ask government officials to consider the possibility of other government offices apart from the 3 Wan Chai towers? Many government offices are very conveniently located. Well, I already gave you the reasons. We have someone in the government property agency reviewing such matters. You have any particular suggestion involving a particular government office, let me know and I can consider that. Mr. Albert Ho. Thank you, Chair, President. Good afternoon, Mr. Deng. As one of the official newspaper of the central authorities, the One Way Pao, on the 11th of March this year, it gave wide coverage to a meeting of the CPPCC. The Deputy Director of the Liaison Office in Hong Kong, Mr. Lee Kwai Kang, mentioned a 10-point consensus between the central government and the SARG. The 10-point consensus includes asking the SARG to allow deputies to CPPCC and MPC to be more involved in local affairs, including appointing them to advisory bodies, statutory bodies, to provide venues for them to work and to consider them in our honor list. And then, Mr. Xi, I'm sure you're aware that the head of the research department of the Liaison Office, Mr. Cao Bao, published a document in Central Party Schools newspaper saying that there are 2 governing forces over Hong Kong, one being the SAR's establishment team, with you as the leader, and the other team is the central government and other mainland cadres closely involved with Hong Kong affairs. Given these circumstances, people are concerned that the one country, two system principle might be eroded or is doomed. All right, on this occasion, Mr. Xi, can you clarify to the public whether the 10-point agreement exists or not, whether it is in verbal or in writing, whether it's just an tacit understanding or a formal agreement? And secondly, has the SARG received any list from the Liaison Office or the Hong Kong Macau office to appoint CPPCC and MPC delegates to our advisory bodies and statutory bodies? And how do you respond to that list, and how do you address the public's concern over this matter? Mr. Xi, I've said this before, and I can very solemnly reiterate here that the SARG has not any agreement or consensus with the Liaison Office in relation to the appointment of CPPCC or NPC delegates. Well, this I can say for sure. You've referred to a list. I've yet to see a list from the liaison office about appointing certain persons to this committees or that committee. So you need not worry, okay? I've not seen such a list in the past decade or so. We will certainly adhere to the one country, two system principle in accordance with the basic law. We have not changed our position. The central authorities respects our position, and it has also acted in accordance with the basic law. Mr. Albert Ho, at least I've heard from the CE that is openly rejected any such request from the liaison office. I've once asked the Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs to deny the existence of such a list. Now you have done so, although he refused to do that. And what about your response to the claim about two governing forces? Does a second governing team exist in Hong Kong? In particular, after the march on the 1st of July 2003, Mr. Zheng Qinghong said that a special working group should be set up to be more concerned about Hong Kong matters. And then many people were appointed to follow up on Hong Kong policies and matters. So that working group, do you know whether it exists or not? Does a second governing team exist or not? And how can you ensure they will not be influenced by these forces? C. The country implements one country, two systems and allow Hong Kong people to rule Hong Kong. This is enshrined in the basic law. Since the handover, the central authorities has stuck to this policy. You know, the central authorities is responsible for foreign affairs and defense in Hong Kong. The relevant departments and mainland officers stationed in Hong Kong have always adhere to the basic law in their operation. Since the handover, there's been closer cooperation between Hong Kong and the mainland, such as the CPR, individual visitors scheme, and renminbi business. In these areas, cooperation, naturally, there will be people from the central authorities and different cities and regions liaising with Hong Kong. The liaison office has been engaged in this work all along.
As far as Hong Kong is concerned, we have the SAR government. We don't have to worry about this idea of another ruling team. The Hong Kong's ruling team is the Hong Kong SAR government. Mr. Tommy Cheung. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chief Executive. Recently, the Liberal Party received from the Travel Industry Council and the travel industry practitioners some comments that since the onset of the financial tsunami, they are struggling to stay afloat, and the number of people joining tours has dropped. In particular, after the swine flu occurred, since the 3rd of May, they have experienced about 60–70% of the number of people visiting China or coming from China. And the situation remains pretty bad. It is heard that all the tours to Japan have been cancelled in June. They found that most of the travel agents are struggling to stay afloat, and they will be experiencing cash flow problems, and they're teetering on the brink of collapse. Mr. Howard Young got low-interest loans from the Financial Secretary for the travel agents. So we'd like to ask the Chief Executive, bearing in mind that you said the Financial Secretary will be considering further relief measures in the coming months, and the sector is struggling so badly, will you be
asking the Financial Secretary to consider reducing the license fees or offering low interest loans to the travel industry practitioners. Chief Executive, we fully appreciate that with the onset of the human swine flu, the travel industry will be adversely affected. I hope that this is going to be short term, and we've seen tourists, the number of tourists increasing. But although the number of tourists coming from elsewhere has dropped, but this is offset by the increase in number of visitors from the mainland. But I wouldn't be surprised that over the past couple of weeks, because of the onset of the onslaught of the human swine flu, it is detrimental to the travel industry. We'll pay attention to this situation. All SMEs in Hong Kong, including travel agents, will try our best to offer help to them. Mr. Tommy Zhou. Mr. Chief Executive, they talked about suspension of license fees and 100% loan guarantees and so on. I hope that this can be introduced forthwith. The human swine flu is not simply affecting tourists coming from mainland. I mean, the number of tourists has dropped by 60 to 70% across the board, and things are worse than a couple of weeks ago. Do you see the need to have a word with the Financial Secretary to offer some assistance to this particular sector, other than the catering industry that I represent? Well, you're making it so specific, I can't take the decision. It is a decision for the Financial Secretary. You have to consider other sectors as well. You have to consult the colleagues of the CEDB, but I can assure you that the negative effects of the financial tsunami and the negative effect of the swine flu are taking a toll on different sectors. We'll certainly consider certain measures. You made specific proposals about the license fees. We can't take any specific decision here at the question and answer session, but we'll consider that. Mr. Sophie Leung. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chief Executive, recently some business friends would like to find out about the future of Hong Kong, and they'd like me to ask you about the task force on economic challenges, which is headed by you, in relation to the new economic pillars. How are you going to take them forward? How are you going to consolidate them? Thank you. Chief Executive, these are no new industries in Hong Kong. Other than the pillar industries, we have financial services, shipping, and so on. These 6 new economic areas, they appreciate that they do enjoy pretty good advantages. There are no new industries. They have a very good grounding in Hong Kong. We are considering how best we can build on the existing foundation and further develop them. First of all, at the CPU, there will be a number of study group meetings where we will be inviting the practitioners from the various sectors, the academia, the members of the task force to take part in the discussion. We have already organized meetings for 5 groups, and we're on to the 6th one. All these findings will be discussed by the task force. Having considered all the different views, we will be mapping out implementation strategies, and we'll prioritize the strategies. But as I said a moment ago, we're not talking in a vacuum. We hope that at the government level, if resources permit, if we will be able to help the industries, if the industries offer potential, we'd like to take formulate some measures in the near term. And surely we'll be in discussion with LegCo and the relevant parties. Mr. Sophie Leung. Mr. Chief Executive, the business sector does have a lot of ideas, and they like to chart the course for Hong Kong in the days to come. They like to contribute their views. Will the CPU, I'm not suggesting that we should expand the CPU, but they'd like to offer their input. Are there any channels open to them? Well, there is the internet available. I mean, there is a website designated for that. I'm sure that they can contribute their ideas via the web. Before the task force holds its meetings on the findings of the focus groups, I'm sure that they might wish to contribute their views. We can invite every last person in Hong Kong to these focus groups, but these focus groups are sufficiently representative. This is going to be an open discussion instead of discussion behind closed doors. If you're interested in medical services, innovation and technology, environmental protection, certification and testing and so on, I mean, they're welcome to contribute their views via the CPU website. We'll have open discussion and get on with it together. Mr. Philip Wong. Mr. President, through the chair, I'd like to put this to the Chief Executive. Since I've chaired the PAC since report number 44 of the Director of Audit report, there have been a lot of problems with the governance in the government-subsidized bodies. There is a commonality cutting through them, like, for instance, the appointment of members or the governing team is suffering from poor attendance rate. And also the procurement procedures are not followed strictly, and also the entertainment fees are not in compliance with the normal procedures. I'm wondering, Mr. Chief Executive, whether there are any ways. I mean, we've worked so hard to compile the report. I'm wondering whether there are any ways to benefit the relevant organizations. So, Mr. Chief Executive, can you think of any ways to eliminate all these common problems?
Mr. Xi, thank you, Dr. Wong, for your question. We attach a lot of significance to the audit reports on different departments and bodies. If these recommendations are applicable to other bodies and organizations as well, we will review our guidelines. Recently, we have been looking at a few statutory bodies. We might feel that there are some irregularities, or they might not be handling their day-to-day business well, or there might be problems with procurement. We will not target at that particular body. We'll see whether the same guideline can be applied to other organizations. I can undertake to do that, but I hope members can understand this. When these statutory were set up, it was the common wish of legislators to make them independent, free of government control, and therefore we have to strike a balance. When there is a problem, you can't blame us for not monitoring them properly, because the design is that they are free from government monitoring or supervision. So we will see how we can deal with these issues in future. Should we strengthen government's relationship with these bodies? How should the government handle such matters? These are worthy of our consideration. In particular, when there are new statutory bodies, we should pay particular attention to this point. You cannot have a cake and eat it. If a body is independent, you cannot supervise it too regularly. If we supervise or monitor the body too frequently, then it's not conducive to its independence. I've always stressed or insisted that no public officer should approve their own duty visits. It has to be approved by a senior or supervisor or by a certain committee, because it is a sensitive issue. However, it is not easy to implement this principle. Some statutory bodies are financially autonomous, and therefore the heads of these bodies may counter our intervention, so we have to review these matters. Well, in terms of the operation and attendance of board members, we'll see whether our guidelines can be reviewed and updated. We also have to see how we can monitor these bodies. Otherwise, these problems are bound to occur. Is Mr. Leung Kwok Hung inside the chamber? Because I couldn't see you. It's your turn now. Mr. Wong Yok Man, can you put down that play card first? Mr. Zhang, although you are a pseudo chief executive returned by small circle elections, you should still work for the nation and the people all the same. However, recently, there are two things that you shouldn't have done. You shouldn't have done at all. You shouldn't have done these two things. Why do I say so? I know you are not very conversant with Putonghua. You spend $100 million on national education. I am an activist to defend the Diaoyu Islands. This is the 19th anniversary of the May 4th movement. You send your people to stop us from defending the Diaoyu Island. I have written out a poem for you. 90 years since May 4th, set sail steadfastly to defend Diaoyu Islands. I'm fighting mighty powers, and you told the Japanese villains are impeding our righteous boast. All right, you spend $100 million on national education, and you are in the way of us trying to defend the Diaoyu Islands to remove this national shame. You spend $100 million on national islands. You only have a few sentences on the June 4th incident. I have another poem for you. In Tiananmen, the warm blood curdles. On the ground, the whole nation mourns. Can't believe Emperor Qin still exists to let you blemish the flesh blood with ink, with your ink. Mr. Leung, please come to your question. All right, you've spent $100 million. You are a Chinese. Why do you want to help your enemy? Why do you want to help the CPG to please the Japanese and also to hide the warm blood of the Tiananmen incident? You are the CE. You take the lead in national education. You should be the role model for Hong Kong people so that they can love their nation and Chinese people. Can you have a clear conscience? Can you be accountable to the activists defending the Diaoyu Islands? Can you maintain a clear conscience in front of those who died 20 years ago at Tiananmen? You should be brave enough to tell the truth. You should allow people to defend the Diaoyu Islands. Mr. Leung, you are now in the way of other members who are waiting to ask questions. Please be seated after you've asked the questions. Okay. Mr. C, I failed to get the question. Mr. Wong Yok Man. Mr. Leung. Mr. Leung, please state your question clearly. My question is, why you have stopped the fishing vessel to Diaoyu Islands for 3 times? Why have you spent $100 million on national education and yet only a few sentences were written on the June 4th incident? I can't believe that Emperor Qin still exists to let you blemish the fresh blood with your ink. Please answer this question. If not, I will ask a supplementary. Mr. C. All right, the first question is about defending the Diaoyu Islands. I didn't get the second question. You spent $100 million on national education. Why is it that in our textbooks there are only so little on the June 4th incident? All right, that sounded like a question. First, the Diaoyu Islands. I read from the newspaper that this Baojiao No. 2 vessel was carrying activists to defend the Diaoyu Island, and that mission, that trip is not for fishing. This has breached the legislation on Class 3 vessels. Such vessels can only be used for fishing purpose and not for carrying passengers. And I understand that the Marine Department is of the view that this is against the licensing conditions and therefore has stopped the vessel from going out to the sea. I support this approach because it was found that there wasn't sufficient safety facilities, and those people on the vessel was also not covered by insurance. That has breached the relevant marine legislation. We haven't targeted at this vessel alone. The Commissioner for Marine in the past few years, in the past 3 years, have prosecuted 56 such vessels. So the consideration was safety and also a violation of the licensing conditions. The second question, we use public money on national education. This is a natural course for us to take. After the handover, we must enhance people's understanding on China on various fronts. Our people should learn more about the country, and we should let our people be more knowledgeable about mainland matters. And the funding was also approved by LegCo.
Mr. Leung, I think he was lying. Mr. Chief Executive, in 2006, the Diaoyu Island activists set sail without any obstruction. That was then, and now China is toting up to Japan. Why is it that things that people could do 3 years ago cannot be done today? I have to clarify. Well, you can only follow up on your questions. Well, second, I'm not saying for 1 minute that we shouldn't do any national education. My question is, why is it that for an event which was really earth-shaking so many years ago, there was only a scant mention, a very brief mention of that, and you devoted $100 million to national education. You shouldn't resort to sophistry. Chief Executive, first of all, the Director of Marine has to look after the safety of the people at sea. In 2006, I think it was another boat. In 2007, we are talking about the same boat. It was prohibited from setting out into the sea. We have to bear in mind that last year we realized that the Japanese Navy sank a Taiwanese boat when it was trying to proclaim sovereignty. If the Director of Marine realizes that there is a Hong Kong licensed boat that is sailing to the Diaoyu Island to proclaim sovereignty, he has to consider whether the situation would be like last year. Should there be any collision, will there be any safety hazard to those on the boat? There is a safety consideration, plus the fact that that boat wasn't really licensed for fishing. It wasn't licensed for that purpose. And also, yesterday you had a lot of debate here. I'm quite interested in this issue. I've got a couple of textbooks, secondary school textbooks, regarding the coverage on June the 4th. I mean, these pretty comprehensive coverage. These are textbooks from secondary schools with a very comprehensive coverage of June the 4th. I mean, it was it treated the matter truthfully. Mr. Raymond Wong, if you violate the rules of procedure, you have to leave the chamber. Mr. Leung, well, you can't do the big thing, but I mean, will you be helping the Lehman victims? I mean, you should do the small thing as well. Mr. Wai Ming? Mr. Chief Executive, As you said in your opening statement, the economy of Hong Kong doesn't seem to look very promising. We cannot afford to be optimistic. There are more and more people being thrown out of a job. And many of them are suffering from economic or financial difficulties, and they have to sign on the CSSA. Because of the stigma attached to CSSA, many people who are in difficulties are not prepared to sign on the CSSA. Would there be any interim measure to help these jobless people to tide them over the difficulties? And also, people will have to fulfill the residency requirement of 390 days before they would be qualified for the CSSA. Many people will have no choice but to stay on the street. Unemployment rate has hit 5.2%. 187,200 people are out of a job, and the figure is climbing. The FTU urges the government to earmark at least $2.5 billion to set up a temporary unemployment relief fund. Will the Chief Executive consider these proposals to offer some assistance to the jobless to tide them over the difficulties? Chief Executive. Regarding the negative impact of the financial tsunami, this is something that has been exercising our mind on a regular basis. You talked about these people who are not qualified for CSSA. What measures does the government have to relieve their problems? I'm sure you have put forward some proposals for the Financial Secretary. A couple of things we have to consider here. First of all, will this create a financial burden on Hong Kong on a long-term basis? If we remove the asset evaluation, the means test, will we be able to do it? Most importantly, we have to focus our attention on stabilizing the financial sector. To stabilize society, we have to sustain the enterprises to make sure that they will not collapse in order to keep the jobs, in order to create jobs. And this is what we're doing. For those who are in the safety net, I mean, this is something that can wait because they are protected by the safety net. Inflation is not a big problem here. So I think it's important for us to place the jobless into jobs. If we create a new social security system, we have to be careful because that would incur additional expenditure. In this regard, we shouldn't create a long-term burden on Hong Kong. Mr. Wei, Mr. Chief Executive, we keep talking about a temporary unemployment relief fund. Mr. Chief Executive, I think what you said a moment ago is basically technical problems. It's all a matter of government will. We understand that it is important to develop our economy, to place people in jobs. But the threshold for CSSA is very, very low. Many people who are out of a job simply are not qualified for CSSA. Would there be any transitional arrangement to tie them over the difficulties? The government talked about all these technicalities. I get a feeling that Mr. Tsang and his government are not prepared to take on this idea of a temporary unemployment relief fund. It's all a matter of willpower or government will. All the rest of them are technicalities. Chief Executive, these are not technical matters. These are important issues. I mean, we have to consider whether we will be able to afford this, whether we can get this through. Let's go. For those who are suffering from difficulties under the financial tsunami, we are prepared to consider their plight. But how are we going to do it? What measures are we going to be implementing, which will be affordable to us, which will not cause severe debate in the community? We're prepared to consider them. Ms. Margaret. Mr. President, Mr. Chief Executive, if I may put a simple question to you. In our society today, people's confidence in government is terribly important. Whether the leadership has conscience or whether it has any principle would be very important. Today is the 20th anniversary of the June the 4th. 20 years ago, you were just an ordinary AO. Were you saddened by June the 4th? Today, will you tell the people of Hong Kong categorically that you support a vindication of the verdict of June the 4th? Chief Executive. The people of Hong Kong's feelings and attitude towards June the 4th, I fully understand, but it has been many years since the event occurred. The nation has achieved considerable accomplishments on many fronts. It has brought about economic prosperity. I'm sure that the people of Hong Kong would pass objective judgment on the development of the nation. That's my view. Mr. Ng. Mr. President, I'm asking about the principle and the conscience of the Chief Executive himself. Is the Chief Executive saying that if the economy is doing well, then one can get away with murder? The Hong Kong SAR government, in order to share the benefits, should it bury its conscience? Chief Executive. What I'm saying is that time has gone by. The people of Hong Kong have seen considerable achievements in economic developments and other areas. This has brought about social stability and economic prosperity. I hope that you would trust the people of Hong Kong to come to an objective assessment. People are asking you whether you have conscience. Will the person in the gallery please be let out of the chamber? Please leave the chamber.
行政长官
Mr. CE. Mr. CE. President, if the CE has finished answering my question, I'd like to mention a point of order. Now, in our council, if the government official has not answered our question, we can raise it. I'd like to know whether the same rule applies in a CE question time, because the CE has not answered my question. Ms. Margaret Ng, even in an ordinary question time, I have said more than once, the public officers attending our council to answer members' questions, they might not be able to satisfy members with their replies. Very often, government officials has provided an answer, and yet members may stand up and say that the question has not been answered. As the president presiding over a council, I cannot compel government officials to answer questions in a way that can satisfy legislators. Our usual practice is to allow members to ask a short supplementary after the main question. If members are not satisfied with the CE's answer, I'm afraid you have to pursue through other means. Can you please clarify your ruling? So is my understanding correct? Are you saying that usually for our rule of procedure for usual council meetings apply to the CE question time as well? Secondly, usually or in ordinary times, you were able to tell whether a government official has answered our question or whether we are just not satisfied with his answer. So are you able to tell the difference today, or are you using your power to say that CE has answered my question already? Ms. Ng. Well, the rules for usual question time applies to the CE question time. So is it your view that the CE has not answered your question? Yes, I'm asking about his own conscience. And yes, he was telling me about economic development of the country. his answer is neither here nor there. Let me repeat, if a member is of the view that the CE or the government official has not answered his or her question, then he or she can ask a supplementary question. Mr. CE, let me say it once again. My view represents the overall view of the community. Their view would also affect mine. What I said was the impression of the view of the people on this subject. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. I think the C is putting words into the people's mouth. I'm afraid this is not a point of order. How can you represent me? You cannot represent me. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, please be seated first. I have a point of order. I'd like to ask the C to clarify, how can he represent me? How can he represent the people of Hong Kong? This is very objectionable. I asked the CE to clarify. If he's saying that he represents the whole community, ask him to withdraw his remarks. Please be seated first. Mr. Chairman Kwong, I asked the CE to clarify. Why does he think that his view on the June 4th incident can represent the people of Hong Kong and all the people of Hong Kong? I'm saying that I represent ordinary members of the public. Of course, not all the people of Hong Kong. I can repeat once again that the people of Hong Kong's view on the June 4th incident, I said I appreciate their feelings. The incident took place a long time ago, and our country has achieved remarkable achievements in many areas. And the country has also progressed. I'm sure this is my judgment now, and I believe many people agree to my judgment. I respect you. You have already President, you have told us your view on the June 4th incident, and yet he hasn't. He is not qualified to be the CE. How can he sell his conscience? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, you are to leave the chamber at once. You cannot represent me. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, you are to leave the chamber at once. Mr. Lee Chuk-yen, please be seated first. President, I will give the C a last chance. Otherwise, I will leave in protest because he has put words into people's mouth. Mr. Chairman Kwong, now, our rules of procedure is such that when legislator or a government official is speaking, if a legislator would like him to clarify, it is for the government official or the legislator who is speaking to decide whether and how he is going to clarify his remarks. This question time should not be turned into a debate. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lee Chuk-yen, please be seated first. Please do not obstruct other members from asking questions. I will walk out in protest because the CE claims that he represents us and the people of Hong Kong. This is not a question of whether this is a debate. Under the basic law, it is the CE's constitutional duty to answer members' questions. He cannot take our questions or take his constitutional authority lightly. I declare the meeting adjourned.
Will members please remain standing while the Chief Executive enters the chamber. The Chief Executive. There are quite a number of members who've yet to put questions. I hope that members will observe the rules of procedure so that members will be given ample time to put questions to the Chief Executive. Those in the public area are reminded to observe the order of the meeting. Chief Executive. I must apologize for making members so agitated, but my meaning was very clear. I'm sure that the people of Hong Kong will come to objective assessment having regard to the development of the nation. This is my assessment of the situation. This is not a disrespect to members who may hold different views to this issue. What I mean is that after such a long time, different people will come to their own judgment. We should respect others' judgment. Mr. Sampson Tam. Mr. President, as legislative members, we have the opportunity to put questions and communicate with the Chief Executive direct, but there are many netizens in the community who simply cannot communicate with the Chief Executive. They seem to feel very distanced from the Chief Executive. In other jurisdictions, the presidents, like President Obama and our Premier, also maintained online communication with the netizens on the web. I've got two questions for the Chief Executive. Is the Chief Executive bold enough to launch an online question and answer session for the Chief Executive? Second, we're very concerned about the development of the Internet. The consultation of obscene and indecent articles ordinance was conducted. If I may put this to the Chief Executive, as the top guy in Hong Kong, also as a parent, do you think that we should step up our control over the Internet? There are two questions there. We like to take advantage of a blog to communicate with the members of the public. This is a very effective medium, and this is something that we can consider. You talked about the online Q&A session. This can be considered. As to the control of the Internet, this touches on a wider issue. This is not something that we can do it alone. We need to have international convention for this to happen. For obscene and indecent articles, we do have regulation, and this will achieve certain effects on the Internet. But this is not a question that can be answered in a word or two. I'm sure that we need to have a discussion in the community as to how these can be regulated. But after certain issues, we need to consider or explore ways to regulate the Internet. Mr. Sampson Tam. Well, the Chief Executive said that he would explore the possibility of launching a Q&A session online with the members of the public. I'm not sure whether the CE has the web language, has any knowledge of the web language to communicate with the netizens. Direct communication with the netizens. Well, I use the internet every day. I'm not lagging that far behind. Ms. Li Fongying, Mr. Chief Executive, the Task Force on Economic Challenges suggested that there should be 6 economic areas that can be further developed. And in these 6 areas, they have everything to do with the members of the public, medical services, education, and so on. We do enjoy a very good reputation in these areas. But at the same time, the resources made available to these areas do fall short of expectation. Medical services, for instance, the members of the public would have to wait anything up to 2 years for specialist services. I mean, it is ridiculously long. Universities maintain 18% in their intake of local students. So how will the government attract the people from outside Hong Kong? But until we invite people from outside Hong Kong, isn't it right for us to satisfy the local demand first? Well, I think we have to look at both. The scope of services and the quality of services will have to be kept under constant review. What we have to face today is whether we can keep the quality on a long-term basis. Do we have the financial resources available? We have conducted one round of consultation. We'll do more consultation with a single mission of stepping up our services and use the resources appropriately. We can see that our medical sector has ample room for development. This can become a new impetus for development. While we consider how best we can maintain and strengthen our medical services, we have to explore whether we can create a new economic impetus and turn it into new economic activity and create more jobs.
Ms. Lee, Mr. Xi, although you told us that both issues of both aspects have to be studied, but can you promise that while you are expanding these services to benefit people from outside Hong Kong, you should ensure that Hong Kong people will be no worse off as a result? Now, if we have no conclusion for healthcare financing, then we have to face the reality that our medical services would deteriorate. But before we turn our medical services into a new service industry, we have to ensure that this will not jeopardize medical services for local people. This I can undertake. Mr. Cheung Hock Ming. Thank you, President. In your policy addresses in the past 2 years, you emphasized that infrastructure should be used to promote our economic development. In your opening remarks, you also stressed the importance of infrastructure to our economy. The DAB cannot agree more. In the first half of this year, many infrastructural projects are ready for implementation. However, I believe that government departments know that they have come across many hurdles. Different stakeholders, including green groups and landowners and even squatters, are very concerned about these infrastructure projects. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask the CE. This is an excellent platform. You were once the district officer for Sha Tin. You were heavily involved in land resumption matters. Can you take this opportunity to convince people that are going to be affected by land resumption to take forward these projects? CE. Whenever we have a major infrastructure project, then there will be a lot of construction and some people will be affected. There are people against development. We have to respect this sector of views. The important thing is put the whole thing in a public debate. And the best thing we are doing is to consult the relevant district council and the professional advisory bodies. And then in the relevant panel of this council, we will give justifications of such projects repeatedly and to tell people the benefits and the costs of these projects and how we can strike a balance. I think this is the only way we can do it. For people that will be directly affected by these projects, they might have to be relocated, the land might be resumed for the sake of a major infrastructure project, then due compensation and care should be given to them to ensure that people affected will be given assistance. And what if there are matters not covered by policies? Now, for squatters, I believe we have to be flexible. Development is important. But according to my own principle, we have to balance the needs of different sectors. We cannot just roll forward like an engine. We have to bear in mind the cost some people will pay, and they should be duly compensated. Only this can we ensure progress in society. I have give deep consideration to such matters, when there are overall benefits and economic benefits, then and if there is already consensus in society, then these projects should be taken forward. But for a small group of people that will be affected by these projects, we should give them due explanation and give them due compensation where appropriate. Mr. Zhang. Now, some policies are not able to resolve the problems. So, Mr. C, are you saying that for some policies, they can be amended without affecting the overall interests of the community? Well, the policies are here to serve the public, and these policies are here with justifications. They cannot be casually changed. So when we want to revise our policies, we have to consider different views, and we have to bear in mind the long-term implications and consequences when we want to revise a policy. However, let me stress that we need to take forward major infrastructure projects. We have to bear in mind the interest and cost to different sectors, and we have to see whether, if affected, they should be compensated. Mr. Chan Kim-po, thank you. The Anglo Starlight insurance company was found to be problematic, and now this $200 million guarantee has been granted, and their business have been restricted. Now, in the motor insurance board, there is a $2 billion compensation fund. This will ensure that claims to the Anglo Starlight would be protected. So you see that this kind of compensation fund is very useful and important to consumers. You said that the office of the Commissioner for Insurance would consider setting up a compensation fund. Now we have 8 million policy holders of life insurance. We want the compensation fund to be set up as soon as possible to increase people's confidence. I'd like to know the progress of the compensation fund and when can it be rolled out. Mr. CE. We now have a compensation fund. However, we are now setting up an insurance protection fund so that when an insurer is insolvent, the policyholders can still be protected. The OCI is liaising very closely with the industry to discuss such issues. The industry has put forward various considerations, such as the scope of protection and whether consumers can afford extra costs, and we will strike a balance. I hope that in July, we will report to the FA panel of this council on the progress. I'd like to stress that we want the insurance protection fund to be implemented ASAP, because I'm afraid that once it's put to LegCo, it would be delayed. Let's work together. Mr. Him. I have a question for the CE. Whether the supplementary measures to help our economy would be implemented ASAP. However, you've already gave us an account in the opening remarks, so I'd like to ask another question. You will be leading the team clean again. The DAB did a survey earlier this month, and we found that most people in Hong Kong agree or give recognition to the performance of the government in this round of disease fighting exercise, and they are also confident in the government. The CU Hong Kong recently announced the community's rating of major officers have increased, including you yourself, Ms. CE. It said that the SARG has learned from our past experience of the SARS outbreak and the avian flu, and as a result has made some progress. And we also recognize the hard work of the government and our medical personnel. Well, since the SARS outbreak in 2003, the government has a major publicity campaign on personal hygiene and cleanliness. People have been reminded to wash their hands frequently. However, it seems that such measures are rather lax. Last week, the DAB had a voluntary team involving 1,000 volunteers. We mobilized volunteers in all 18 districts. And then we searched all the spots in Hong Kong, and we discovered some hygiene black spots. This morning, we had a press briefing announcing 68 hygiene black spots. Mr. Xi, can you undertake to do this? If the locations of these 68 black spots are given to you, can you very expeditiously clean up these areas ASAP? And how will you prevent the existence or the occurrence of such hygiene black spots?
Chief Executive, after the SARS epidemic, we've learned a lot of lessons. The government as well as the people of Hong Kong have shown greater concerns for hygiene, but there are still some hygiene black spots in Hong Kong. Recently, together with the 18 districts, we consulted the district councillors. We identified 68 black spots in relation to hygiene, or 86 black spot hygienes. Most of them are in public places, and the FEHD will be conducting cleansing work on a massive scale. But a lot of them are also in private premises, and this involves private ownership. It takes concerted efforts on the part of everybody to clean that up. We cannot barge into private places on a daily basis to clean up their spots. I think we need to turn these black spots into bright spots, and for this to happen, we need the cooperation of the government and the members of the public. The government has kept Hong Kong one of the cleanest cities almost in Asia, but the private owners and tenants will also have to have regard to their own cleanliness. I'm sure that we need the encouragement of the district councils. We need the cooperation, collaborative efforts on the part of the members of the public. It takes individual efforts on the part of the owners to make this happen. Mr. Yip, I'm grateful to the Chief Executive for the undertaking. In the coming weeks or so, we will be dispatching voluntary teams to post all these black spots on the web. Will the Chief Executive give us the undertaking that I hope that there will be no more black spots? Like the Chief Executive said, I would like to turn everything into clean places. Should there be any black spots, we hope that there would be assistance from the government, and we can achieve tangible results. Will the government be offering any assistance? Yes, most definitely. If the government can help, we will be willing to help. If we don't get the consent of the owners, and the problem has deteriorated to such an extent that it becomes a hazard, we'll take legal action. But it takes collaborative efforts. It is the responsibilities of the owners in this regard. Dr. Leung Ka-Lau. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chief Executive, I'd like to follow up on the 6 major economic areas proposed by the Task Force on Economic Challenges. One of them is medical services. Over the past couple of years, the medical sector has been thriving. Private hospital beds are mostly taken up by pregnant women from the mainland of China. The medical sector has put forward proposals for the government to make available more land. I understand that the CPU medical focus group held a meeting regarding the development of medical services. I wasn't part of the meeting. The message that got out was that the hurdle lies in the fact that there's not enough suitable land for private hospitals, and also the scarcity of nurses. I've known about this for many years, but I'd like to lodge a complaint that the Development Bureau and the Health and Welfare, or the Food and Welfare Bureau haven't been able to resolve the problems. The last hospital built was about 14, 15 years ago. So I'd like to put this to the Chief Executive. Does the Chief Executive have any measures that he has up his sleeve to resolve these problems? Chief Executive. You refer to the land problem. I mean, this is a problem not just for the medical sector, but also other sectors as well. If the medical services need land, I mean, it doesn't need a lot of land, but there are 2 or 3 plots of land that have been identified for the construction of private hospitals. Wong Chuk Hang in Aberdeen, and others, Twin Moon and so on. This can be taken advantage of if we are committed to zoning these for these purposes and offer them up for tender. We can certainly make this achievable. There are 2 plots of land that are available that can be used in the near term. We'll follow up with Dr. Yok Chow in this regard. Nurses, this is a matter of personnel training. Should we train up our nurses? Should we import our nurses? I think we have to do more in this regard. We'd like to listen to the views of the relevant sector. Supply is a problem, but these are not insurmountable problems. As to our training, I understand that I mean, would it be better to stick to the old way of training up the nurses? I mean, we can keep an open mind in this regard to meet the demand. I keep my options open. I adopt a proactive attitude in relation to medical services. If land is required, we should work hard on that. If we need more resources for the training of nurses, we certainly can do that. Dr. Leung. Mr. President, Chief Executive, in last year's policy address and the year before last, there was a mention of the 2 medical centers of excellence. Can these 2 centers be part and parcel of the development of medical services in Hong Kong, so that we can get on with them quick? Chief Executive. I haven't got the details with me. Neuroscience, we do have the expertise in this regard. I'm sure that we can become, we can create school of excellence, and this will signal some achievements in Hong Kong in this regard. When we develop the medical services into industry, this will go hand in hand with that. Last question, Mrs. Regina Yip. Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Chief Executive. If I may put a question to you. I asked this question on behalf of the Lehman ELN victims. They came to me this morning. The inquiry in relation to Lehman has been focused on the minute bonds. They said that they were misled into buying these products. The banks told them that the worst scenario would be just to hold on to the equity holdings instead of losing everything. They were hard sold these products because they had savings in the bank. one of the victims was sold the products by somebody who didn't have any training. The worst staff, the worst attitude was with regard to the foreign-owned banks. The local banks are starting to make compensation. Well, there are problems with the mini bonds. We are approaching these in various ways. We're taking complaints, and the litigation fund on the part of the Consumer Council will start legal proceedings. When it comes to winding up of the Lehman asset, the interests will be protected, and there will also be settlement, conciliation, and so on. For other complaints, I'm sure that the Hong Kong MA has received a lot of these complaints. We'll follow up on those. I hope that if these complaints are valid, they will be there will be opportunities for settlements to be achieved with the banks. And if they're still not happy, they can seek assistance from the litigation fund of the Consumer Council. But to start off with, we have to get to resolve the mini bond issue first.
Mrs. Yip, I'd like to tell the CE that these LEN are worth billions of dollars. Many people in the public gallery used their pensions. Some of them are ex-civil servants, use their pensions to purchase LENs. And these investor banks have the headquarters overseas, and they not too concerned about their complaints. So, Mr. Xi, can you offer them a helping hand? I understand that, but we have to act on their complaints. If their complaints are substantiated, then we can use the litigation fund at the Consumer Council to help them. As I said, we have to deal with the mini bonds, which are greater in number first, before we attend to other complaints. If there are cases where investors were misled into buying, then there are channels for them to pursue these. They can go to the Hong Kong MA or the SFC with the support. They can also lodge a complaint to the Consumer Council, which can use a litigation fund to help them. The session ends here. The Chief Executive members in the public gallery, please leave now. The Chief Executive will now leave the chamber. Members will please stand up. I now adjourn the council until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 20th of May, 2009.